to introduce you to Alex, who's our speaker for today. He is actually a student that I worked with when I at JMU, and it's been fun to follow him as he's climbed the ladder over there at Mortenson. So we're excited to hear from him today. And Alina, it's good to see you. And hopefully we'll have some other students join us, but otherwise it'll be a great discussion either way. And Charles, good to see you as well.
Nice to see you, Remy and Bill.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm getting my son's internet set up too in the campsite I'm in, so I apologize. Nice to meet everybody. I'll get everything set up here and share some slides. Do you see the slides that I'm sharing?
Yep.
Great. And I guess we'll wait for a couple more minutes to get everybody in the meeting. And I think we're set, Remy, if you need to head out.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Have a great discussion. It was good to see you, Alex.
You as well.
Alex, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today and doing your discussion. I see Charles there. Hi, Charles.
How you doing, Bill?
Very well. And Alina, correct? Nice to see you again. You've been on before, I recall. All right, I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes just to make sure there's nobody else going to hop on, and then we can get started.
Apologize if there's any background noise. I am on an active construction site, so I think they just started up a generator right outside my window.
No, no worries. We don't hear it, so
That's
no
great.
problem. Okay. Well, how about this? Well, Charles, you probably know the announcements, and so does Alina, for that matter. Happy to go through everything again. I can't get this to go a little large for us, but maybe I can do full screen there. Do y'all still see the screen?
That's great. Thank you.
You bet. So I'm just going to mention some upcoming events. RE Plus in September at Las Vegas. I believe everybody is probably well aware of that event. And Alina, I know you've heard this several times, that we do our conference experiences and student symposium. I'm not sure if you've taken part in the past or wish to, but that is the QR code to apply. We do have limited spots at this point available for that, where we do take care of, well, repowering schools, I should say, accommodations and industry meet and greets and various symposia that happens throughout that weekend. And then there's some other events that come up in October. You can see Rise Leadership Forum in Atlanta, October 14th through 16th. Another great opportunity. I want to let everybody know on the call that these are recorded, and they are available at Repowering Schools YouTube channel, where you can find that through Repowering Schools just by searching for that. And it's also at the bottom of our website, LinkedIn, and on our social media, we also share that information. And that is what it looks like when you navigate there, just to give you a visual. And then let's, without any further ado, we'll introduce Alex Martin, Assistant Project Manager, Mortenson. Alex, I'll let you take it away. I don't know if anyone else is joining for now, but sometimes people pop in throughout. So I'm going to continue to stop sharing, and then we'll get going here. So thank you again for joining us today.
Sure. Glad to be here. And thanks for inviting me. I've known Remy for a long time. So that's where this reach out came from. I worked at the Virginia Center for Wind Energy with her and Dr. Miles way back in 2015. And so that's where this connection came from. And then I ended up attending James Madison University for school. I studied integrated science and technology there, focusing on environment. So if anyone's not familiar with the program, I always say it's like engineering, but less math and focus on renewable energy and sustainability. But yeah, so shortly after graduating, I applied for Mortenson. They are ranked as the #2 or #3 wind construction EPC or general contractor for wind construction. We've got projects all over the country. I believe we've built in nearly all 50 states. We actually just entered a new one in Arkansas. We no longer can build in New York due to regulatory constraints there. But yeah, we've been all over the country and even internationally a little bit. But started as a field engineer in the field. A lot of quality control and documenting turnover books to customers. So I guess, what is a good way to say it? Yeah, a lot of field time, construction, getting into wind construction, you are not in the office a lot. I was climbing towers nearly all day. We have our craft members that are the ones operating the cranes, assembling and torquing the bolts for the different tower sections. They'll fly the blades and stab those into the hub. And then as the engineer, come in on the back end and make sure it's all installed correctly, following the instructions, the torque specifications, and things like that. And then you record it all, document it, put it in a nice, neat form, submit it to the owner, and then we get to sign that tower over, and the company gets paid for it. So that was the first 6 years of my career, in part, gradually growing into managing other engineers performing the tasks. And then at that point, I had been in 10 states across the country. Projects are generally about a year long, depending on the scale or the size. Kind of seasonal builds of spring through the fall. Winter's pretty tough to build in. Usually that's high winds limiting it or weather constraints. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. It's been a busy day out here on the site as well. But
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
We can help by asking you fun questions.
I like questions for sure.
Okay. Am I allowed to ask a question, Bill? So Alex, thank you so much for joining us. And I would say a word about small audiences like this, which is it serves as a practice for you, right? And then Alina, are you a student?
Yes,
Or
I
you,
am. Yeah.
you are, and then Ram is a student, I'm assuming. What might be amazing? I mean, Alex, think back to your ISAT days and how a single conversation may have steered you in a certain direction, right? So this is you influencing the future you, right? These are Alina and Ram could well be in your shoes in 10 years. And so this is you influencing, which is pretty damn cool. And you don't need 50 people in the room to do that. You need one other person and you've got a even, playing field, two people, you've got industry growth, right? So you've got two people on the call. And if we can convince them that this is a fun place to be and it matches with your sort of personality and their personalities, then this goes. And that's the fun part. And I would argue, I don't know anything about Alina and Ram, but what I know about the ISAT program is that it appeals to a certain kind of person, somebody who doesn't want to study how a water droplet forms, but somebody who wants to understand systems, right? Somebody who wants to understand a process, somebody who wants to have a bigger picture, like yourself. And so if that's the case for these other folks on the call, I think that bodes well. Okay, so that's the little that's the caveat or the preamble. You've seen a lot of turbines go up, and you've seen systems, I cannot imagine somebody putting a tower together with a high torque anymore. I mean, that's feels like a thing of the past. High torques are cheap, but they're slow as hell, right? And so you probably are doing everything with an ERAD, with an electric torque wrench effectively. Can you share a little bit about what are some of the things that allow you guys to put up a tower, a big old tower, 100-meter tower or whatever in a day or two when it's, I don't know, is that 300 bolts? I don't know actually. Is it 400, 500 bolts and each one has to have its torque and you got to log that torque. So what is some of the systems that are employed to make that doable? Like, how do you know how are you recording each bolt torque? And is it torque or is it stretch? And when it's stretch, how do you do that? So can you share just a minute just to dig into a specific thing just for fun?
Yeah, no, those are some of those detail engineering aspects that I really enjoyed. Um, so a big part of the difference with torque versus tension comes down to the OEM or the original manufacturer. You got Vestas, you've got GE, you've got Siemens. Those are kind of like the three big players. And they all kind of have their special pattern that they prefer. But now a large majority is going towards tension. They are more reliable in torque process, which is just the straight turning of nuts. You get a lot of variability with friction if there's any materials between your surfaces. But we do still see a lot of it. For torquing, we're using Atlas Copcos. And think of it as you've got your regular drills or impacts, but this thing is attached to like a supercomputer. And this supercomputer is taking in the power. It's got built-in programs that each part of the tower, you've got your can sections, you've got your can to your nacelle to your hub. Each of those has unique values. And so our torque manager has built programs for each of those different connections. And so that kind of takes away some of the human error in it. The guys in the tower, they'll select which program or which connection they're doing. That brain, the box, will basically then control the drive. So it simplifies it, takes out the error, and so they can hit the nut. They'll hit the trigger and they'll pull the trigger until it stops, and the brain box will then also log that value, so we can pull that data on the back end and submit that to customers for proof that it matched the spec.
How do you do tension then on like a intercan bolt?
Sure. We've got tension heads. And so those operate off of a hydraulic system. So we'll have our hydraulic. This is the one I use less often.
Yeah.
So that will operate the tension head, goes over the stud. So in the torquing, we're applying force to the nut. In the tensioning, we're grabbing basically the studs, or not the studs, the threads of the bolt, and we're pulling those threads up while we apply pressure to the nut to lock it in place.
That makes sense.
And so that's based all off of hydraulic pressure. So we have super calibrated gauges. They're very accurate, highly tested, and that's how we then record that we achieved the value, and we verify with second gauges against each other.
And that's a handwritten record then, sounds like.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then what's bolt number one, and what's bolt number, like how do you identify bolt one so that you can log them all and say we got them all?
A lot of paint pens.
A lot of paint pens.
Honestly,
but is it the one center of the ladder that is the first bolt? Like how do you identify which one is bolt one to you?
generally, yeah. The customer, OEM, and ourselves as the EPC will all get together and kind of build out that all right, which one do you want to identify? And you're right. Generally, in the can sections, it's dead center of the ladder to climb up. And then we'll just put numbers all around all the bolts,
Right.
and then verifying it. You apply torque marks to each of the bolts, pre and post, and that helps you track the turn that the nuts received.
Nice. So, there's a story about GE that, they were among the first to kind of nail the installation of the 1.5, the SLE, because they installed 15,000 of them or something like that in a short amount of time, right? And so they were like the industry, they were the gold standard of how to do things quickly. Because they're process people, right? The whole Six Sigma thing with GE is like, they're impressive. But they're also not in the field like you are. You're in the field and you are like, yeah, they thought they had this, but they forgot that there's like, this doesn't work over in this corner. What can you give us some examples of, when the boots on the ground are experiencing the realities that the engineers with the perfect line don't experience. And then what's the feedback process back to the OEM look like? How receptive are they to your good ideas for how to kind of improve a process? And what might those be? What are examples of like you're providing feedback?
They GE Engineering is a stubborn group.
Yeah.
GE's actually, and the 1.5 specifically, have been a large majority of the towers that I've built.
Oh,
Specifically because I have sort of fallen into this focus of repowering. So, like you said, there's 15,000 of them in the initial build. The towers are lasting around like 10 years or so, give or take, from when owners are wanting to then renew their tax credits, and things like that. So we'll come in and we'll do the component exchanges in order to give them new life, basically changing out the engine or the drivetrain, the blades, the hub, the generator gets rewound. Then
wow.
So yeah, I definitely have a lot of experience with the GE and the GE engineering.
Nice.
They they are very particular in how they want their towers put together, especially when it comes to torque procedures, which can be very elaborate and in depth. As failures have happened across the industry, bolts not reaching spec, and say like in the hub, or like the nose of the tower, your blade connection, if you have so many of them not reach spec and then it fails, then that blade will fall out of the tower. And they've had that in the past, and so that's where they built these redundancies in their procedures to make it more in depth. And they may not be solving the root problem with that, more than just adding on additional time to complete the task. And in the field, people will get frustrated with it and they'll try and cut corners with it. So as the field engineer or the person verifying the quality, you have to realize that, see the evidence, learn it, and then go back and make sure that they correct it and do it properly. So it's a battle between your own team to do the process correctly, but then you're also trying to get GE to understand that their process may not be the most efficient use, and there might be a better solution. So that's kind of where the torque versus tension. Tension is very hard to mess up, and it's an efficient process that's accurate and reliable. The torquing is where there's so many different steps of applying an initial torque value measured in Newton meters of, say, 1400 Newton meters is your first applied pressure. You're doing that to all the bolts in the section, and then you come back and you either do it a second time That's one of the fixes. Or you then apply angular torque where you've applied your torque mark, and that's your initial, and then you'll apply torque again and turn that torque mark until you hit 90 degrees or 180 degrees, and then you mark it again for the final.
Is
So
anybody using squirters at all?
squirters.
Squirters, you've come across those at all? They're it's a tension indicating washer. So it has little cavities in it with a little bit of latex in it. They're kind of it's an engineered washer. So when you squish down on it enough, you put the right compression, which is the friend of tension. It flattens the washer. It mushes those little cavities flat, and out comes the latex. So it's an indicator. And as you were saying, torque gives you plus or minus like 40 or 50% in terms of repeatability, right? It sucks. When you do moly and the lubricants, you can get within 20%, but plus or minus 20%, so still a big variable, right? The squirters you can get within 5% first shot, and there's no skill involved, and you can use a torque gun to do it. But you know, they're $3 a piece or $5 a piece, so they add up. But when you compare to what's the chance of over torquing something and stripping it, or you know, stretching it, fatigue, yielding it, whatever, you know, it's cheap. I don't know. It's something to. It'd be fun to see you later on and see if you can get somebody to hand you some and play with them, because they're remarkable. Because they do that tension thing and they have a whole process of demonstrating it when they come to the field the first time and show you. But I don't know how many people are using them. It doesn't sound like it's that prevalent. I don't know why.
I have never seen or heard of them. I also haven't gotten into like the newer, much larger platforms. Kind of my repower specific one industry has limited me to the smaller size to date.
Yeah. But it's such a legacy turbine. You're lucky to be on that platform in a way, and they'll leapfrog you to the next whatever. But this is what they look like. So it's just they stamp it, you know, to get the void, and then they somehow put it in there and clean it off. And then when you can see how it's got a little proud section here, and that gets squished flat when you put enough tension on it or compression on it. And then out it comes out there's a little channel here that allows you to, you know, visualize it. And then they train you because what, you know, more comes out under under different conditions. So if you squeeze it all the way, it all comes out. But if you squeeze it partially, some of it comes out, right? And so you can kind of be within 5%. After like the second one, you're like, oh, I got this. And then your repeatability is like obscenely high. It's kind of fun. Well, that's so fun. You mentioned New York, that there's a policy environment up in New York that's causing you to kind of like, well, that's not a market we're playing in. What can you elaborate on that a little bit? Are you familiar enough?
I don't know a lot of the details for why we do or do not bid for projects in New York. There are other general contractors that will do work. I believe we in the past have just had contractual issues and issues with state regulatory that have made it more of a hassle than it's worth, compared to other states that are just lenient. Texas and Iowa's and Minnesota's, the good Midwest, where they're just build it, we don't care, put them up.
And how big of a rotor will the original SLE 85 or whatever take? And will it go up to 100-meter rotor or 105?
We are the largest I've seen us put on one is 116 meters.
Holy cow.
Yep. And that is on an 80-meter tower. And it's a weird looking tower combination because the blade is literally coming right on top of the stairs.
Looks like it's an offshore turbine. Yeah.
You feel like you can jump up and touch the blade too.
Oh. 116. That sounds like 58 off of 80. Yeah, that's getting pretty close to the ground. That's amazing. And then you mentioned that you hand off at one tower at a time. Is that true? Or at completion, mechanical completion, you're done?
Essentially. I mean, we'll have 1 to 2 walk downs a day, which is where we go through the final tower with the owner and make sure there's nothing broken or there's no dirt or scuffs, or that all the torquing procedures are marked out correctly, and they'll accept the tower, and then that's where they take ownership of it.
Are you responsible for the inspection of the equipment as it arrives, or is the owner responsible for that?
Both parties perform inspections to verify, and all parties need to agree upon the condition, because once they hand them over to us as the contractor, and if there's any damages at turnover, they're going to try and put it on us so that they don't have to pay for it. And so that's kind of the balance in the game that you play of who broke it.
Like getting a rental car. Yeah, you make sure you tick all the little dings and dents
Right.
beforehand. That's fun. Yeah, we had a situation where we had a blade inspection company for a while. And we were doing drone inspections of blades looking for mostly leading edge damage. But we came across this one whole farm in China where they had unloaded all the blades, just set them on the ground, and then installed them right on the dirt and on the gravel. And they had these, 6 meter long gouges that were through the gel coat, right? You could see, it's like, oh my God. And they put them up. It was like insane. It's like, why didn't you fix it before you put it up? You're losing whatever, half a
Right.
few percent kind of thing. That's cool. So did they expect to get, you might not know, but maybe you hear about it. One of the concepts of repowering is that there's a bunch of life in the tower and the foundation and the mainframe, because the SLE was, I think, is a class 2 turbine, definitely not a class 1, right? An IEC class 1, so meaning it was good for 8.5 meters per second or something like that, for 20 years, and they're putting them in 7.2 or 7.6 or 6.9 or whatever it is. And so there's a lot of fatigue life left in it. Do you get to be in the room where they're doing that analysis and then and hear how they came to that conclusion that there's enough fatigue life remaining?
Um, I have not been a part of the structural fatigue analysis or determination. I have been a part of the foundation fatigue,
Cool.
and getting engineering to review um, the foundations and what they were exposed to over their lifetime, and then whether or not the new rotor size which basically you increase that rotor size, you're increasing your surface area, you're then increasing the forces that your foundation is going to experience. And so a part of some repowers is we will then need to install collars or collar systems to basically
Wow.
increase the mass of the foundation, or also um, contain the existing pedestal, which is the top section of the foundation. And that will, as you also add more mass and weight to the top of it, you're getting a downward pressure on the foundation, which then wants to explode out the sides. So you're containing it with a stronger material to prevent that failure as well.
Is it a steel collar?
Usually concrete, rebar and concrete. We'll
Oh,
drill,
interesting.
yeah, we'll drill into the existing foundation to get like an anchor for the new pour, and then it'll be 2 or 3 feet of additional concrete added.
Wow, I hadn't heard of that. That's so cool, man. That's amazing. A lot of tower climbing. So I was going to ask you what's your favorite tour. I don't know if you've, been in a lot of different models. But I was going to ask, the rumor has it that the GE is the crappiest experience because it's tight and, value engineered to where it's kind of miserable for the technicians. And the other end of the spectrum was, I don't know if you ever came across the repower turbines, the MM92s or whatever they were. They're out of Germany. They're a tier 2, so you may not have seen them, but it was like the Cadillac because it was huge inside. We had 10 people in the nacelle hanging out, having a party. And there was no no value engineering.
Right.
So can you share a little bit of experience for the folks that haven't been up in them? Like, what's it like inside? And it's not running, so it's not noisy, I guess, when you're up there. But what's the access like? How well thought out of it? Is it just engineers doing what they do and not thinking about the people that have to actually take care of them?
Yeah, there's decent amount of room. So you've got your ladder up the tower, 300 feet or greater. Your you don't have there's no stairs into it, just more ladders in different angles. So you're kind of like climbing around things. You
Mm-hmm.
get into the nacelle, and you've got like catwalks that are
Pretty narrow. No,
2
18
foot
inch.
wide up down both sides.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, there's no benches up there. There's if you gotta sit or take a break, you're on the ground.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're climbing over things, you're ducking under other things, always wearing your hard hat and your stuff because you're gonna probably bonk your head a few times. But
Right.
they are, yeah, I'd say they're the size of like two standard bedrooms put together. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's a great
It's like a
analogy.
big motor home or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but then just imagine you put a bunch of equipment all in it, and you got to climb over top of it and move around. So
If ever you get a chance, in Tehachapi, there's still a few of the Mitsubishi 300s lying around. And sometimes there'll be a nacelle on the ground. And if you can get access to that, you'll really appreciate the GE nacelle because this one had the generator inside of a can. So it looked like a submarine. You had to enter through the top through a man access and then slide along the edge of the generator because there was only like this annulus around it. And to get into the rotor, you had to go through the doghouse. You had to go underneath, rotate the rotor so it was oriented correctly and crawl into the rotor from under. Horrible, like the kind of nightmare you might experience. Like horrible. Um, that's fun. And then climb assist, or are you guys all strong enough not to need climb assist systems like a rope?
90 most of the time we do not get access to the climb assist.
Oh man.
They'll be there, but we put a lot of wear and tear on that, and so we generally do not use them to not break it.
You
So
guys are 10 foot strong
we
then.
do
Oh,
just hand over hand climb it. Anyone on the call doesn't know what a climb assist is. Basically, a little motor with a nylon rope or pulley, or a service lift. Basically, that'll help take away like 50 to 75% of your body weight. Just makes it, you can just run up the ladder, basically.
Yeah.
Little effort.
turned you into Lance Armstrong.
Yeah. Well, that
I
was my,
cannot believe you guys do it manually. That's intense, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a fair amount of climbing back in the day and never with a climb assist except for a few occasions. And then I was like, holy cow, you could do this forever. It's amazing. That's so
nice
fun.
day.
Next thing,
I wanted to ask if anyone else had, oh, sorry,
oh
go ahead,
yeah,
Travis.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just doing the interview. Sorry
I
about
just
that.
wanted to ask if anyone else had any questions in the group, and I did not get a chance to do introductions, so I apologize to Alina and Ram. If they would like to introduce themselves, feel free, and if they
Oh,
don't, to
yeah, where
Julian.
are you?
In
Oh,
addition to this,
okay. I guess I can start. Hi,
thank you.
Melina. I'm a rising sophomore at Johns Hopkins University. I used to work, so I'm still on the team for the Hopkins Student Wind Energy team, so I compete annually at CWC. I don't know if Alex is, do you know Jamie Mears?
Jamie, who?
Jamie
Mears?
Mears.
Yours?
She's also a JMU student, Luna, and she also competed at CWC for a couple of years. But anyways, yeah, she also majored in I guess your major integrated science. But thank you for sharing. I think everything's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Alina. Ram, if you feel if you're available.
Uh,
We'd love.
Hi, Alex. This is Ram Podal, and I'm with the Appalachian State University here in Boone, North Carolina. I used to work with the developer in the past, but right now I'm working with the university. And before this, I used to work at NREL, and I have seen Chad Newcomb and some other folks before. And I was really interested to learn from your experience and bring that experience to the class.
Yeah, it's amazing. And
Absolutely.
Alex, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Charles Newcomb. I'm on the Repowering Schools Board and a huge fan of JMU. And App State both, because they've been really important programs to Repowering Schools and the Wind for Schools program before it. Dennis Scanlon, who was down at App State before, and Brent Somerville after, but John Miles has been this he's been so stable, at JMU, and he's been there forever, since the early, I want to say since the late 90s even, or something like that. I mean, he's been there forever. But yeah, as Ram mentioned, I was at NREL for a little over 10 years, 12 years about, and then worked as a developer of small community scale projects. And so they were always kind of sub 5 megawatt projects, which I really liked because it had the community aspect to it. You're not a cog in a wheel, you're the whole, your small team is the whole developer. But we never got the kind of cycles that you've had, Alex, to learn things and to understand things and be able to provide the kind of feedback that you can probably get. The OEMs hopefully treat you with the appropriate deference and respect that you deserve, because you're the one experiencing their equipment over and over and over and over, Yeah, it's it's an interesting thing. Can you tell us some stories about, your favorite experiences, whether that be, oh, you popped a hatch up and it was a misty morning and you couldn't see the next turbine over, or, can you just share a couple things that'll help Alina to understand that this is a really cool space to operate and you learn new things every day?
Yeah. Well, say one of my most memorable moments. Well, you've mentioned popping the hatch. You're on the lid. I was on a project called Laurel Mountain in West Virginia, ridgeline job just north of Elkins, West Virginia, and it was perfect fog rolling in on one side of the peak, and then clear as day on the other side. Look down the ridge line at all the other towers ahead of you, and it was just absolutely gorgeous.
Magical. Yeah.
The wonder of the job is you are out in the field. You're in these remote natural areas. A lot of them are plains like, just easy build, easy regulation and things, but you do get some ridge lines and prettier areas, and so there's wildlife abundant, and you get sunrises and sunsets that people just dream of. So
That's so amazing. And you probably have a camaraderie with your team, right? Because you're a bit of a traveling team, so you get to know your teammates really well and know they're like your family, I would think.
yeah, I think Mortenson is in about like the 300 supervisory salaried position roles for in the field support, and then we have several 2,000, I believe, of like the craft hire. You do get some repeats where you run into other people you've worked on projects before. Oftentimes they're new, but you are like hundreds of miles, hours away from home, and they do become like your second family. And you're hanging out after work. You're going on little trips and things, exploring the towns and communities that you're in while you're on the road. And yeah, you get really close, and everyone's watching out for each other, and you're always helping each other. So I really like that atmosphere. It's not the one where you clock out and then you've got your own separate life and you have no connection with anyone else. It's very much like, what are you doing later? What are you doing this weekend? And so that's really cool.
One of the challenges of construction crews and companies is maintaining good behavior after hours. I mean, I work for a consultancy that does a lot of telecom work now, and our crews, we've gone through cycles where they're really well behaved, and then we have to fire a bunch of people because they're getting in trouble, in town, kind of thing. How do you guys maintain a healthy culture of good road behavior? What's that like? How do you set the expectations?
Um, I think Mortenson just has a great set of core values that they instill in like the work and on the clock time of we before me, inspire what's possible, um, and oh, there's a third one that I should definitely know. I've got it somewhere. Redefine possible. And so those sort of bleed into your after work life, and people really take pride in working for Mortenson, um, and they want to, everyone, like, we instill that like we are visitors, we're guests in these communities, and the actions after hours make a large impact in the communities and their acceptance for wind and the future building of new projects. And we've, in the repower side, when we come in 10 years later after a project's been built, we do run into disgruntled communities where they're very upset with how the last contractor handled themselves, either in fights at the bars, or they're made a big mess in the farm fields and left a bunch of trash and stuff like that. And so Mortenson's been really good with building up the community, being involved with community events and charities and volunteering and things like that, that people see the effort and they want to also help that even when they're on their own time. And so you do get one or two here and there that's their nature. And but in the broader scheme of things, it naturally happens with Mortenson's culture.
That's a good sign, man. That's
Yeah.
really good. Alina,
Yeah.
got any more questions?
I do have a question more about Mortenson, but I'm not sure if like you're familiar with that like business sector. But I know like Mortenson have been doing some like building management. Um, I don't know if you have any knowledge with that, like about like energy, I guess buildings energy system management and all the utility rebates projects.
Um, is that like in the battery storage, or I guess what
Um,
industry? Because Mortensen's very much a part of,
yeah.
they touch a lot of industries in construction.
I guess it includes like battery storage and like solar to a degree. Yeah.
And so the base of the question, what was?
Um, I was wondering if you can, if you have first, if you have any knowledge with like the building energy system management business, and if you can talk more on that.
I
Yeah.
might not have the best info on that, but I do know that our battery storage and our solar, they're each a separate division within Mortenson.
Okay.
And we are seeing more and more projects where customers are asking us to combine those. And so we'll work in partnership with wind and solar, is a big one. And now adding battery in, they're asking for all three, because that's a whole part of like the growth in the industry is how do we produce 24/7 power, reliable, sustainable.
Yeah.
We are seeing more whole projects where they ask for us to basically incorporate all three technologies into
Yeah.
one, to better provide for the remote region that they're asking. Usually those projects are in the most remote, where they don't have support by natural gas or oil. They're like in the deserts of Arizona, or they're uh, middle of nowhere Arkansas, or very, very remote places. So don't know if that really touched what you're asking, but some cool
Um,
information from it.
I think it's helpful. I did have a follow-up, but more probably a question to Charles, because you mentioned that you work for like community-based projects. So I was wondering, currently my wind energy team, we've been working on trying to design like energy management system that could like potentially help the building to optimize its solar array and some other distributed energy resources such as EV. Um, I don't know, I want to learn more about like your experience just working with all these DERs, and if the utility rebate application on this like sounds feasible, I guess, in the first place. Yeah.
Really interesting question. I think one of the lessons we've learned over the years, back in the day, so 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when we were first thinking about hybrid systems, and NREL had developed something called the Hybrid Power Test Bed, which became the distributed energy resource test facility, and then became something else. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember. It's changed name 3 times. I can't keep up. But it was this notion of having, you got to have something that can measure the power flow and know what to put in the batteries and what to put on the grid, or what to put to the load, or what to take off of solar versus wind. And we had wind simulators. We had a 50 kilowatt tiny little wind turbine simulator, and anyway, we've moved away from that because we discovered that hybrid systems, unless you're talking about an island, are just bespoke. Everyone is different. They're like unique and expensive from an engineering perspective. There's a guy named Dan Juhl, Juhl. And if you look up, Brad or Bill were you on Radwin with us? I can't remember. You think I would, no.
No, but I
If you
know the
look up
name. Yeah.
yeah, Radwind, Radwind. So the keywords would be Radwind and NRECA and Lake Region. And you'll come up with a case study of a tiny little hybrid system. It's a wind solar hybrid system. And Dan was one of the first people to say, why do we keep integrating these things? Why don't we just co-locate them? So that he put them both. The first one was kind of an experiment with GE. GE had come up with this WISE system as a wind solar integration system. And it used the converter on the turbine as the inverter for the solar. So it brought the solar in at 800 volts onto the DC link. And seemed like a really cool idea, right? Because the wind and solar are kind of diurnally compatible. But Alex would be the first to tell you that turbines flake out all the time for the stupidest reasons, like, oh, I lost contact with the SCADA, I'm going to shut down, or my anemometer got stinky and I'm going to shut down, or a yaw drive tripped out some breaker and I'm going to shut down. And every time it would shut down, the solar too. So because you couldn't pull the brain of the inverter out of the system. So his second one was at Red Lake Falls and had 2 turbines and like 12 megawatts or so. I can't remember, maybe 5 megawatts of solar, co-located. And he just like brought them into the same substation, said, forget about it. We're using an inverter for the solar, inverter for the turbine, or controller, a converter, and much better, because when you're talking about hybrid systems, it's better to just run them all in parallel. So, Alina, your answer to your question would be like, if you're trying to optimize how a building operates, the better way to do it is, if it's going to be grid connected, is keep it simple. Make sure it just works and run 10 cycles. As Alex would tell you, you get a new tool, you don't roll it out across the whole development platform. You test it with somebody who is good at like fixing things. And then they say, yeah, I think it's ready for prime time. And you expand to like a few teams, but you don't just like do a step change. So on the building side, if it's one of your first, you make everything modular and parallel, so that when that tracker on the panels on the roof of the building flakes out, it doesn't take down whatever the next component is, right? There's a lot of, I worked with a company, we did automation actually on shopping malls in China. That was our thing, because we were like, let's go to China where there's 12,000 shopping malls that are 500,000 square feet with ancient technology, nothing automated, people running around opening and closing vents with with wrenches. It's like, holy cow. And if we just put a variable speed drive on the air handling unit, we could save them 10%, like that.
8,000 men have permanently broken free from the P word.
Oops. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I have a fair amount of experience with different things, different types of technology, but now I've lost track of the question. Other than my advice would be, if you're trying to do something for competition, it would be running things in parallel as much as you can, and then have one smart thing, like have the battery be smart. Because the battery can say, oh, I can measure currents, and I can decide whether I want to bring in and participate or export and participate that way. That's what I would say, and not try to have something that tries to dial down different technologies. That's too complicated. Because you probably had your controls class, or you're about to next year. And in controls, if you remember, have you had your controls class yet? No.
I'm not.
Um, yeah, in controls,
yeah.
it's all about frequency, right? It's knowing what the loop frequency and the time constant of all the different things is. And there is control theory and there's control reality, and control reality is really different. And Alex would tell you that, like, a lot of these things, they just try to simplify them and make sure they just work first. They don't like wind turbines are open loop. They're not closed loop. I mean, the latest ones are starting to be closed loop, but all the GEs that Alex is working on, they have a lookup table that says, what's the wind speed? What's the pitch angle for that wind speed? And they set the pitch angle and they run. There is no maximum power point tracker on that thing. Solar panels on your home with an MPPT are more sophisticated in their control algorithm than a GE. So it's kind of insane, but that would be my advice, I think, if there was any advice in there. I love that you're doing the CWC. Alex, did you get to do the CWC at all? Because JMU had a pretty vibrant team for going way back, but you may have predated it even. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was not a part of the team for it, but I've volunteered at one, and then back
Oh.
in high school we sort of participated in one, but it was scale. We did like a 12-foot mono blade tower.
Ooh. Wow. Okay.
But did not stick it in the Kidwind
Uh-huh.
tunnel.
That's so cool. Alina, what else do you want to know? You got Alex here, and he has been in the field for about 10 years longer than I have. He's gonna know so many tricks and things and have so much experience. It's just amazing. We're so grateful, Alex, for your time.
Likewise. We have 8 minutes to wrap up to let everyone know.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Happy to go over, but Alex, I know you're on a construction site, so mindful of your time.
Yeah, no, people are coming in, but I'm letting them know I'll wrap up soon.
No problem.
Well, I would ask a couple more questions since Alina went back on mute, and then that gives me permission to keep asking questions. Do you drive to site or do you fly, given that you're going to be there for days, weeks, months?
I drive. So standard project duration is 6 to 9 months. If you get into some of the larger sites, you're there for a year and a half. Now we're pushing into 2 years as we get into the 500 towers, 700, 1,000 towers for a project. But the team sort of split 50-50 on, some people have campers. I'll rent an apartment, and then I'll just live on site, and then I'll drive to the project site for work, basically. So I'm classified as like a nomad. Don't really have a home. I just move to the next project and live there on the road.
Do you bring a bicycle with you? Or a kayak?
I have a bike that I left in Minneapolis, but I've gotten into running. So after hours, I'll run. So
You do that anywhere. That's amazing. You've probably run in some pretty incredible places.
yeah, there's a
Amazing.
beautiful lake on the Canadian border for this project that I do laps around. So find some hidden gems.
How familiar are you with RISE? WRISE. Become across it's an association. So here's the key. It's the Women of Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy. So that's what RISE is. And I encourage you to even though you're a man, I'm a man too, last I checked. But I'm a member of RISE and I pay my annual dues. And it is this very cool association of women and their advocates and their allies. And what's fun about it is that it's a kind of a distributed network of about 5,000 people, 5 or 6,000 people across the country, and they have chapters in each state. And so you may find that, if you look up a RISE, you'll find that there are some activities in the state where you are, probably nearby. And there's often like a happy hour kind of thing. And they would love to have you and share your experiences because they need more men and people in the field, I think, just have great insights. So I encourage you to look that up. And Alina, if you're not part of RISE already, you should be, because there's peer mentoring programs, there's webinars, there's a lot of educational opportunities. But for Alex, when you're a nomad, sometimes it's nice to have a connection with people. And you may find that there's people nearby who are in the RISE network, and then you could reach out to them and say, hey, I see you're in northern Minnesota. You want to grab a beer or a cup of coffee or something, just to connect with somebody else in the industry. And then you don't seem like you're suffering from being alone and being a nomad. You seem pretty damned healthy, which is really wonderful. But there's also a lot to be gained from connecting with your kind and people who are doing the good fight.
Yeah. No. And how did you spell that again? Sorry.
WR, so Women of Renewable, and then I for Industries and Sustainable Energy, SE.org, rise.org. And I can't even remember they're headquartered out of now, but yeah, they always have great leadership and great people. Thank you very much, Bill, for that.
Yeah, drop the link in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of RISE. I've been with them since they started back in 2005 or something like that. And they had these original women who were these 5 leadership people. Karen Conover, who ended up was one of the presidents at DNV, which you probably heard of. De Veritas Nord, that big deep due diligence, 4,000 engineers kind of company. Abby Arnold came out of the wildlife side. Can't remember all. Beth Sohold might have been in there. Karen, and it doesn't matter. All these amazing women from back in the day, and then the organization is just like launched and taken off. It's very healthy. It's really good.
I think I would just like to close out sort of my view
Yeah.
on being in construction and wind is
Please.
I have absolutely loved it, especially coming straight out of college. Traveling has been excellent opportunity. I have been to 49 states in the country.
What are you missing?
Alaska.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Right.
We get a week off every month. So you work 3 weeks, Monday through Saturday usually, and then you get a whole week off, travel home, travel the country. And so it's been an excellent way to explore and learn and travel. So it's been my favorite part about it, really.
Well, if you look at the EIA estimates, we're going to need another 40% as much power as we have today, or energy, I should say, and that a vast majority of it is going to come from renewables. So the role you're playing, you're exactly where you need to be in terms of being able to launch a whole career that you'll thrive in, which is really great. Alex, thank you so much for your time. We really are grateful for your contribution to the organization, and it's just neat to know somebody who's out there in the field. And Morton's in a great company. It's been amazing.
Interrupt there, Charles.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Charles. Thank you for being on the call. Your insight was amazing throughout this, and your questions helped drive the conversation. So thank you. And thank you as well, Alex, and our attendees today. I just have one quick announcement. Alex, feel free to hop off. It's a repowering announcement, but you're welcome to stay on. Just wanted to announce next week's speaker. So we're going to make sure that you guys can see my screen. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Next Wednesday, we have Anna Franco from Soul Systems. So if you can join for next week, that would be great. And Alex, your webinar and your discussion day will be up on our YouTube page, so everybody can view it there. And thanks again. I'll look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Thank you
much,
all
Bill,
so much
being
for
here.
having me.
You
Yeah.
bet. Talk soon, everyone. Thank
Take care.
you so much for your day and afternoon.
Right on. Bye.
Charles, thank you.